Okay, we're live.
All right.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 78 of the Security Podcast on the In30, whatever network we want to call each other. And today, Tom sent me a thing earlier today that we had trouble deciphering, but once we figured it out, we realized, wow, this is pretty bad. It was a CVE saying that we can remote execute code or on insulin, not insulin pumps, but IV devices. It was something like that.
Yep.
So basically we can control so it's been a while since I've been in the hospital, but it looks like it's one of those stand tall things with the IV drips. And you're saying that it's first that it's Wi-Fi, which is just unbelievable. But second, a hacker can just get in with no authentication and just, I don't know, do whatever.
Yes, exactly. Now, and I want to avoid terrifying everyone who's going into the hospital or is around medical equipment. Believe it or not, the vast majority of IV pumps are connected to a network of some kind, and a lot of them are Wi-Fi, especially if your hospital has equipment. The idea being people can watch dosages, they can see when the things run out or it needs to be refilled, or they want metrics, or there's a lot of great data, good healthcare data to help the doctors and medical professionals take care of you if the devices you're hooked to are talking back to them. The same thing happens with, heart monitors or O2 sats for your breathing. A lot of these things are networked, but this one, they paid no attention to security whatsoever, and that's why now there's a CVE out against this particular brand of IV pump. And it's not a secret; it's public knowledge. It's the Hospira Life Care PCA infusion pump. Now, this is only on ones running versions of the software version 4.1.2. So again, I wouldn't be tampering with hospital equipment. But if it says the version along the bottom somewhere and you're running 4.1.2, I don't know if you could request a new machine, but you might want to look into it.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that we can have the medical equipment talk directly to some central server, but I shouldn't be able to. The central server shouldn't be able to talk back. I mean, I feel like this should be a one-way communication. I don't think that the nurse remotely should be able to up the IV dose or anything like that. I think it should be, here are the stats, and if there's a problem, it turns red or green or whatever, and then someone rushes there and solves the problem.
Yeah, and for that, especially for an IV pump, for something that could be hooked to, something as fantastic after an invasive surgery, something as fantastic as morphine to help relieve pain, calm the patient down. I mean, I've had invasive surgeries before, and a painkiller was the only way I made it out of the hospital, without screaming my head off. It's great when used appropriately, but if someone were to get in, alter the dosage, that's a really dangerous medication that could literally kill you if the dosage is too high. And that's why they have medical professionals closely watching these things. And the IV pumps are designed, the software is designed to not let you get too much of a dose. The newer ones, actually, you can put in the patient's height and weight, and it says, okay, if they're getting morphine and their height and weight is this, they only get this much of a dose, no more. That is the absolute limit, so we can be safe. It's a smart thing. It's a good thing.
It's just, I mean, it's one of those Internet of Things. If we can remotely do this and remotely do that, our lives will be better. The problem is that I don't think there's any oversight committee. The next topic I was going to bring up is, shouldn't this be FDA approved or whatever hospital certification? And I think the answer is it's not under their jurisdiction. You can't just say, hey, we need to make sure the security on this is bulletproof, because who would have thought that someone would hack into the hospital network and then run remote code execution attacks to take over IV pumps?
Right. And let's be clear. No one has died or has been injured because of the security vulnerability. I want to make that clear. But let me explain what the vulnerability is, because there's a lot of devices. There are a lot of connected devices. There are a lot of security holes in connected devices. But this one is particularly glaring. This is huge. So this IV pump hooks to a network through Wi-Fi. You better hope your hospital has good security, right? Good Wi-Fi security, making sure they're using WPA2 and a good cipher spec and a really long passphrase, all the things you would expect from good security.
Well, hold on. So let's see. My wife delivered a baby, and I went to, and so the 2 days we were there, all I had to do is accept every 24 hours the splash page. It said, don't do bad.
I do know for the hospitals I have been in, the medical equipment networks and the patient guest networks are two completely different networks, totally separated. So at least, for the places I've been at, they've designed their network appropriately. There were some things they could fix up, but, for the most part, I'll give them a pass. But let's say this was on an insecure network. Let's say they used a really bad password and people got onto the network. There's a protocol, a really old protocol to remotely log on to systems called Telnet. Now we don't use Telnet today because unlike, I want to say its older brother or its younger brother named SSH. It's like a command line interface. Telnet and SSH. You can get onto a command line of a machine and give it commands, tell it to do stuff, change configuration files. You are a user accessing a machine at that point. SSH is encrypted. That means you can issue commands, and you can be rest assured that only the machine you're talking to can see those, unless someone has broken in and done a man-in-the-middle attack, which is really hard to do through SSH. You have to try a lot harder to trick someone. With Telnet, it's all clear text. It's like using HTTP without the S. People can see what's going across the wire. It's not encrypted at all. Usernames, passwords, all of that stuff floating in the clear. That's why you really have to hope the Wi-Fi network this thing is hooked to has been secured. So they log in through Telnet, and what happens on most Telnet connections is it says, okay, give me your username. You type in a username, and it says, all right, what's the password? And you have to get a correct password to get in. This was not the case for this device. On this IV pump, you could just log in as root, which is the main administrator account for these boxes, and it didn't ask for a password. It just said, oh, you're root? Cool, here you go. You now have access to log into this IV pump. No authentication, no security, no two-factor, no passwords, no nothing. Complete passwordless access to anyone on the same network as this device. This is probably one of the most glaring security flaws I've ever seen. Now, we're lucky that it got a CVE, which is basically it's a national registry for saying, hey, this is a vulnerability, and it's being published, and this is how we track vulnerabilities in the wild. It's a pretty good system, especially if you look through, you can see all kinds of stuff, from the stuff that triggers Microsoft Windows patches to the software updates for apps you will get on your phone. A lot of things get CVEs if the issue requires it. But this one is particularly glaring. It will be fixed, but I don't know of any hospital that updates the software on their IV pumps. Hopefully there's a support contract. Hopefully someone is paying attention to the news and takes this to heart and works on it. But it doesn't give me a good feeling knowing that these devices are out there being hooked to human beings, right? Because when you're root on a system, you can do anything. You can increase dosages. You can shut down the machine. You can prevent it from working. There's a lot of things you could do that just aren't good.
I mean, I have a feeling that, remember, they are a hospital, and I know that we rarely talk about we talk about all the time about how people don't necessarily care about security. But I feel like in a hospital, somebody should send a notice out. I have a feeling they're going to get a notice in the mail and say, you have to do this. So I wouldn't be too sure. But then again, if nobody checked this to begin with, then who knows?
Right. in what you were saying about the FDA does have a, say what you will, there's good things and bad things about the FDA. And you can find examples where they've done great work and examples where they've done horrible work and examples where they've been morally upstanding and examples where they've been downright corrupt, right? It's a big organization and you have a lot of everything. But the FDA doesn't mandate any sort of security testing of their products because, let's be honest, this is really new, right? 20 years ago, someone saying, hey, let's take the heart monitor and hook it to the internet or hook it to the hospital servers. They would go, what? We have servers? And maybe 20 years is, not really the right amount of time. Maybe 30 is a better one to go on. But relatively, especially in medical terms, this technology is brand new. And testing for security holes either isn't on the priority list or probably more likely no one's even thought about this stuff before. No one's had to deal with this. So while this is a huge glaring flaw, while the engineers and designers should have caught this, I can understand and I can see how something like this slips through. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't make it right or any less bad, but I can understand how it happens.
It's one of those. In my mind, it's a face palm. It's, ooh, we forgot to do this. I have a feeling it's more of they finished the product and they turned off security just to get through everything, and somebody just forgot to switch it on.
Yeah,
and they just didn't realize it until the last second, and now we have this problem.
Right.
And that's the sad part, because now somebody has to go to the CEO and says, I think we made a mistake. We need to solve this problem. And it's going to go public and everybody's going to figure it out and all this other stuff. But I think you're right. I don't think this is intentional. I don't think it was malicious. But yes, now we have the bad guys trying to exploit it, and who knows what they can do.
Right. The thing we can do is to, make a really strong wireless network and isolate these devices. Right. We have to make sure they're on a network by themselves and they are the only things that connect to it, and that the internet at large can't touch these networks.
Well, let's ask this.
That would be horribly dangerous.
What about this scenario where, okay, so you have the hospital maintenance Wi-Fi network that only hospital equipment and mission critical equipment can go through. The only way to get on these, right, is to be on that network.
Right. So, or do a man-in-the-middle attack on said network, but that involves getting the password to the Wi-Fi network. So yes, you are relying on the security of your wireless network to keep other people out. You're relying on devices on that network to not be compromised, to not have remote access software installed on them so other people can work through the devices to get to the other ones on the network.
That sounds like an IT policy to say, you know what, we have this network specifically for hospital machines. Not to say that this is right, but it's one of those, you know what, if the whole network is secure and you know that it's secure and only hospital sensitive equipment is, then who does it? Then who necessarily cares to? And I hate to say this, need to authenticate. But again, if the network is not secure and there's an issue, you might as well have that fallback of having to re-authenticate. There's no problem with that.
Right. As we've said before, security isn't having a really awesome firewall or having the coolest AV on the planet or having the best browser with the most awesome security patches. No, it's having everything. It's security in depth. It's taking the layers of security and, make sure you've got a good network stack and making sure you've got, up-to-date operating systems and programs, and you're running a good browser, and you're running as a normal user, not administrator, and you're using good passwords. It's all this stuff kind of sandwiched together. That's how you make a good security profile. That's how you take the target on your back and make it as small as possible. Just doing the Wi-Fi network, well, that's a big component. You can't really just throw it all on one thing and say, yep, we're secure. Just throw your hands up and walk away. That's not really how that works.
It just seems, I don't know. On one hand, look, I agree with you. I think that this definitely needs to be changed, and we have to go from there. But on the other hand, if they did do everything right, and who knows, then we're sounding the alarms for no, I don't know, particular reason. But it's just so simple to fix. So
Right.
I guess you
And
might as well fix it.
it will be fixed. It will be fixed in the next software revision. And like you said, I'm sure they will get some sort of notice to fix these things. But, if you're working on any kind of embedded system, if you're working on, entertainment systems for cars or airplanes or IV pumps or anything dealing with a computer, just think about that. Think about that when you're doing your work, when you're putting this stuff together, when you're working with the people who do put this stuff together. Think about, think like an attacker. Think of all the horrible ways you could leverage this system to do evil things, and then try to figure out how to prevent that.
And this is again why we've rushed with all these Internet of Things, or these mesh connected networks and everything else, Wi-Fi light bulbs. But somebody on the back end has to sit there, and it's usually the people with a lot of free time. It's the quality assurance person is making sure the light bulb works and the Wi-Fi works by any means necessary. The customer service people are making sure that no one has to contact them. No one is sitting there saying, we should hire a hacker to see who's going to hack my light bulb. And then all of a sudden you get something, and then they hack the light bulb, but that also gave them remote code execution on the network, and then they're able to connect to the Nest, and then your Wi-Fi toaster and everything else.
And next thing you know, all of your toast is burnt constantly. You have a toaster virus. You see, that's where it ends up. First, you take an IV pump home, and then all of your toast gets burnt. That's the way it happens. I've seen it 100 times.
And burnt toast is not what we wanted. Well, we're halfway. Is there anything else on this?
Not on this particular topic, no.
Well, I mean, there wasn't too much this week in major security news. So we said, let's talk about this. And then we've never talked about AdBlocks. And not necessarily specifically the security aspect, but the idea to run AdBlock on your computer in general. So I figured let's take the last, I don't know, we have 13 minutes now to talk about it.
Yeah, I've always said, and this, I think this is all right advice, but I've said in the past that using an ad blocker is probably one of the best things you can do for your own computer security. Because of compromised ads, because a lot of ad blockers will include something like flash block or something else where you have to click to play that auto playing video on the news website. Aside from removing the vast majority of annoyances on the web, it can keep you a little bit safer, and at the very least, it prevents your system, or it prevents your system from rendering, from showing these ad frames, which makes pages look a lot cleaner.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, look, most people, advanced users generally run AdBlock. The problem is now I hear a lot of, run this thing, and it gets sent through email. It's almost like chain letter-ish, where people say, if you run this, you won't get ads. And people are not understanding what it does. What it does is it has a known list of ads and ad servers, and it just doesn't allow them to load, which is fine for the most part. And yes, it gets cleaner pages, but the security aspect is if, like Tom said, one of those things did get compromised, you won't see it. It won't run in the background. You won't get that pop-up. You won't get the ability to click yes to speed up your computer. So it does help that. The negative side of it is if the website you're using runs on ads and you're not seeing them, they're not making money. Right.
So it's important for sites that you like, sites that you would like to contribute to, or to make sure that they get paid, is you need to enable whitelisting in your ad block. And it's just as simple as clicking on your ad blocker, the extension in your browser. Don't download a program to do this. You can. I wouldn't recommend it. I know AdBlock Plus is one of the more popular ones. AdBlock Edge is up there. It's basically AdBlock, but it blocks everything. There's really no difference. AdBlock Plus is a checkbox that's on by default that you can uncheck. There's uBlock or microblock
That's what I'm using.
That's becoming very popular because it's really lightweight and really speedy. But you can just click on that, and let me see what this says for mine. Yeah, it says disable on plus.google.com, disable on this page only, or disable everywhere. So if you wanted to go to my website's a bad example because I don't have ads, but if you wanted to, let's say, go to Reddit or Yahoo or something else and say, oh, yeah, I like this page. I want the team to get money from ads. I'm going to go ahead and click this, then allow it on yahoo.com only. And everywhere else on the net, the ads will be blocked. But on that particular page, which you've whitelisted, which you've said, yes, I want ads, you'll get the ads. They'll get paid.
And, I mean, remember, it's the security aspect. It's a double-edged sword. The security aspect of it is that, one, your website loads faster. You're lowering your bigger footprint of getting spyware or malware because you're not seeing ads. You're not seeing anything malicious. The negative part is you are taking money away. You're taking ad revenue away from the website. So you have to ask yourself, is this something that I should be either paying for or whatever it is? And
right.
And famously, if Tom remembers Fark.com, our friend of the show, Drew, always comes on and he explains this to us. If you do any sort of ad blocking, they're smart enough to say, hey, look, we notice you're running it. We ask you to stop. Or we want you to use, let's say, another add-on called Fair Blocker, which allows you to pay money, $5 a month, $10 a month, and then they'll distribute it to these websites. I don't like that. I much rather just, if I get told nicely, hey, look, you're not stealing from us, but we rather ad block off, I'm more likely just to click it off.
Right. And there are some websites I've used that where the ad is supposed to go, they'll put a little blurb or a funny joke, and they'll be like, hey, you're using AdBlock. If you like our stuff, you can either turn off AdBlock, we appreciate that, or you can throw us some money right here, and they'll have PayPal donate link or Amazon payments or Bitcoin or etc. And you can toss them a couple coins or a buck or two. And I have done that to websites. There's a website that I absolutely loved, and I was running ad blocker, and they updated their page, they updated the layout, and all of a sudden I saw up at the top it said, hey, you're running ad blocker, can you go to the donations page since you don't want to see ads, and we'll turn off the ads for you if you're a donator. I was like, oh wow, that's great. So I gave them $10, and it's a way to support the web page, and especially if they have a donate button, give through that if you can, if you want to, if you really like the site and the content, instead of doing the ads, because the donations are going to go right to the people. It's going to cut out the middleman for the most part.
I mean, the other larger topic at hand is the reason AdBlock came about is because there are way too many ads.
Yep.
And so it hurt those little sites. It said, hey, look, here's a top banner ad. Here's some little textual ads on the right side. But then they started, well, if we put interstitial ads, we do this. And then you get the advent of, the sponsored article where it's just completely a sponsored commercial.
Yep.
And you can't get rid of that. So now, again, it's a cat and mouse game. If too many people use AdBlock, then the content creators get creative and do other stuff. So, I mean, if you're a content creator out there, you know what? Like I said, if somebody says, hey, can you turn off AdBlock and your website's not too crazy, of course I'll turn off AdBlock. It's one click. It's for those random sites you go on the web once that you never intended to click on an ad. You never intend to go back. And that can block, and if it can block some sort of malicious anything, it's happy. It's a win.
Yeah. And for some reason or another, I have seen there's so many spyware-laden toolbars or things that change someone's default search engine come through Google search result ads. And they've gotten better, but not by a lot. So what I'll explain our solution, but what would happen is one of our users at a previous company I used to work at would search for something on the net, something completely normal, like screenshot markup tool, because I want to take a screenshot and put some arrows on it and highlight some text, to train people on a program that they were going to launch. Really businessy, totally legit stuff. So they would search for a program, and they get, the top 3 results are sort of colored in yellow because they're Google ads, and they'd click the first one they see, which of course was the worst of the ads. They download this thing, install it on their computer, then it comes with all these other programs, then the Ask toolbar, then their default search engine is changed to something weird, and the next thing you know, their entire computer is just filled with a bunch of crapware and nasty stuff that it's now my job to clean up. And it got really annoying. It got so annoying, and the problem was prevalent enough that we took our big firewall and we said, okay, look, implement ad blocking across the whole network. And unfortunately, it didn't do a great job because it didn't scrub the pages. When you run an ad blocker on your browser, what will happen is not only will you not see those links, it'll remove them from the page. This one wasn't that smart. Instead, when you clicked on the link, it just gave you a 404, which people said, oh no, the Googles are broken. And then they would have to ask for our help. So it wasn't 100%, but it did stop the Ask toolbar, party going on in this business. So that's deploying AdBlock to your users. While you are probably doing a huge disservice to the net in general and to online revenue for the sites that your users visit, it can help cut down on the amount of junkware users install if they have the ability. And yes, in this particular company, they did have the ability.
And you have to remember that the reason all these things come about, why is there spam? Because people click on it. If people didn't click on it, if a company wasn't making money from ads, they would find another way to monetize. Unfortunately, we saw that with GigaOM. GigaOM shutting down. We don't know why, but it was presumably they didn't have enough money. And I don't think it was a lack of ads or anything else, but again, you have smart people. That's the other problem. If you have a smart, content-filled, good website, you're having a lot of smart people. Those people know AdBlock, and now you're fighting a different battle.
Right. So. That's one of the big issues that the some of the bigger tech blogs have is that their content is targeted towards really technical users, and all of them use AdBlock, so no one gets any money.
And sometimes, look, I think the majority of people, except for high school and college students, if you tell them, hey, can you give us a donation? The answer is absolutely. The problem is that probably the people who generate the most traffic and pirate the most are those college students, and they're poor anyway. You're not getting any money from them. So all you're going to get is, no, we're not going to do it. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I didn't mean for this to turn into a monetization talk, but AdBlock is not a perfect solution. You are hurting someone when you use AdBlock. Whether they deserve it or not is up to you to decide, but it can help make you a bit more secure, especially when it comes to compromised ad frames, which have been a big problem in the past.
So it's one of those. So we'll just finish off with, look, if you're running AdBlock, if you can turn it off on sites that you enjoy and help them out, that's always better than running in and saying, somebody else will do it, because no one else will do it unless you donate first. So anyway, we're done. I have nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay. So we'll see you next week. Have a good night. Bye.
See you guys.